Alright guys, Kyle down here at Lunicycle. Today I'm going to show you how to swap out the harness on the Talaria Sting MX4. It's a fairly easy harness swap. You do need to remove your battery, and it is helpful to have your controller out of the way. So I went ahead and already removed most of the bolts that I need to remove. You'll need to remove the ignition cover bolts. It's very helpful to remove the two bolts that hold this little battery bracket in, and then get your controller out of the way. It's going to save you a lot of time. So the first thing you want to do is remove your little ignition and unplug everything that's up to the controls on the handlebars. Your throttle, your brake sensors, display, and horn switch. And then pull all these wires back. And then you want to remove these two bolts for the little battery bracket here. This will let you kind of pull this back and give you a little more room to unplug stuff. So we're going to go ahead and pull out the ignition. On the MX4 you do have this 60 volt power wire. This comes out of your positive of your battery line. Be careful to unplug that. If you forget to plug that in, your bike will not work. Next, you need to remove two little bolts on the side here to get to the tail light. The tail light wire is inside of this little pouch. It has all these other wires for turn signals, but you can just unplug the tail light. Next is the horn. The horn, doesn't matter which one you plug it back in. You can mix up these wires, but it can be helpful if you use a little tool to pry these connectors off. If you just yank on them, you can damage the wiring. So just use something and push on the metal. You don't want to just yank on the wire. There we go. Alright. So now we've got most of our harness unplugged. You will see there's still a few wires connected. You're going to need to do, let's see, what do we got? We got our headlight, and then this other big connector comes off of your power wire. Go ahead and unplug that. Work your way down. You have your little tip over sensor, which is this white connector. And down at the bottom here, you have your final little pouch. This is going to have your encoder connector, which is this big one right here. This one's probably the trickiest one to unplug. Then you have your DC converter, which is this square connector. And lastly, you have your little kickstand sensor. Alright, so we fully removed Sting MX4 harness. Now we're just going to start to reinstall it. This one's not damaged, so I'm just going to reinstall this one. I've noticed it's easiest if you just take this long part, drop it down where it needs to go, start at the bottom, and work your way up. So we're just going to plug all these back in the way they were. And you're obviously replacing your harness because your bike's not working. Don't spend all your time tucking all the wires back until you test this. So you want to install your controller with everything still kind of dangling to make sure you actually fix your issue. It's not fun to button everything back up and then realize your bike still doesn't work. These are the two big main controller connectors. I'll put a link in the description for the controller swap video, but these are the two that plug into your controller. Alright. Tip over sensor is not necessary, but it plugs into here. And then go ahead and route our little horn connectors. Get those plugged in. Alright, and then back up top here. Alright, so we have our power connector. Just going to plug into this guy right here. We have our headlight, which is right next to that one. And our last little bit of connectors here, we have this very important one. This is the 60 volt power wire. You have your ignition plug. It's very easy to see where these go. These go up to your controls on your handlebar. 2 of them go to the right, and 3 of them go to the left. And lastly, you have your little taillight wire. Be sure to tuck this into this little area when you're done. Otherwise, if you install your battery, this will damage it. And again, before you power this, or before you button everything up and make it look all pretty, be sure to test your bike. So we would reinstall our ignition cover once we're sure the bike's working. You do have this little clip right here, which mounts right here, and then another little second bolt which keeps this wire all protected. You can then tuck all your wires into this area, put your battery mounting tray back into place, and be sure not to pinch any of these wires when you're putting it back into place. So that's the harness swap on Sting MX4, and get out there and ride.